And Markinator with the $5. Have you heard what Thought Slime says here about the left helping men? Oh no.
Now, while I was making
hold on. Ay.
this video, they all respected his grind. Now, while I was making this video, a question kind of made the rounds on leftist internet. The question of whether or not the hashtag online left does enough to appeal to hashtag men has become the question du jour. And like, that's a very misguided question, in my opinion. Broadly speaking, the goal of the left should be to spread power to the most people possible. And so it should always be kind of harder to get...
Wait. Spread power? Before we spread power, we need numbers, right? I don't know what that means. Like, we want... Like, any political movement should be supported by the greatest number of people possible.
Get people who already have unfair amounts of power on board. That's inconvenient, but it's also kind of unavoidable without diluting the goals we seek to achieve. It is never in the self-interest of the powerful to aid the powerless. That's the reason there are...
This is like a really common lefty sentiment, but I really wish they would think about it for like just a little while. If they genuinely believe this, then like, why was the most successful civil rights protester in American history at like making an active effort to appeal to white people, MLK? And like, why have like you know, like successful changes to status quo and power? The argument would be like, okay, so gay people don't need to appeal to straight people, trans people not to cis people, black people not to straight. And it's like, well, no, obviously in reality, like there are two ways you can win in a social setting, right? It's you either convince your opposition or you dominate them, like in power, you know? So either gay people do Jan 6, storm the Capitol, and introduce like a gay junta where they kill all straight people or some bullshit, or like more realistically and more desirably, you try to convince the people who are in power over you that they need not be, that equality is okay. We've done this before, right? It's like an ongoing process, but you do need to bring people over on this, you know?
Are powerful and powerless people in the first place. And men, by and large, are more powerful than women.
Wait, how long does this go on? Also, keep in mind that men being more socially powerful than women does not translate to every guy feeling like he's part of a superior social class than women. For instance, if you're a guy and you're in high school, you might actually feel the opposite in a lot of cases. Because we're talking about how people experience these issues, not how they actually manifest.
There are, of course, exceptions. There are intersections of other forms of oppression that can make individual people's stories different than the general trend. But like, men have most of the money, authority, and do most of the murdering and assaulting, often to not men. In virtually any circumstance where a man has a shitty time in life, if that man were a woman, they would be having a worse time, because they'd have all of their regular problems plus some new woman problems.
This is not necessarily true, because a lot of guys who are having problems have problems in interpersonal situations where men are not necessarily privileged. Men aren't really privileged in their ability to make friends or find relationships. If their problem is that they're like super poor, then that can't necessarily be fixed by being a woman. Though women are more likely to be able to not go homeless because there are more women's shelters and women are considered less threatening. So possible acquaintances might be more willing to let them sleep over at a place, but you know, that's kind of an edge case thing. Obviously women also have their own specific issues, but you know, it's complicated, you know? Yeah, it's complicated. In the West today, male-female power dynamics are really messy.
Pointing out that this is unfair is always going to ruffle some feathers. It's going to make some men very mad because they like having all of the stuff they don't deserve. They don't care.
Okay, so right off the bat, this right here is unironic, like anti-progressive propaganda masquerading as like honest, straightforward political analysis. We're not talking about taking anything from guys. You don't have to take anything from them. They're not going to lose anything. This is like the argument they make. It's like, well, did you know by elevating black people, you're actually hurting white people? Well, no, it's not a zero-sum game. I don't know why they why will lefties say, "Dude, it's not a zero-sum game," when they're talking like broadly, but then privately they're like, "Yeah, it is a zero-sum game." I don't get it. Why? You don't need to say that. Like all I'm talking about is like appealing to men and like taking their issues seriously and uplifting them on those issues, not in ways that give them more social power over women, but rather on like insecurities and concerns and life advice stuff they have, which usually serves as an entry point to right-wing politics.
They like that. They want it to stay that way because it suits them because of the stuff. So those guys, they're never going to be.
Also, your average 13-year-old boy is not like, if you ask your average 13-year-old boy, like, hey, how's being a guy going for you? They're not going to respond, ah, well, I love all the additional social power it gives me. That is just not, this is not how it's like some people seem to think that like the average member of a demographic group has a perspective of that group which is equal to like a Wikipedia summary of a sociology 101 course on that group, you know, like how do you like being black? Ah, well, as a black person, I do not enjoy my lower average income and household wealth. I also do not enjoy the mistreatment by the criminal justice system that I receive. You know, like it's just that's not how people especially young people
Be on our side. We shouldn't want them to be on our side because they're just going to fuck everything up, right? Like,
what? What? You don't want guys on your side if the guy wants to maintain the privileges they have? Can't we all have those privileges? Or I guess in that case it wouldn't be a privilege, it would just be sort of like equal treatment. It's like every lefty, isn't it? Genuinely and fully, it's like every fucking lefty who's like this online. Not that I'm surprised that they would be like this. You know?
our side is meant to stop those guys. It's like saying we should be trying to appeal to billionaires to fund the left. That might be convenient, but
yes. Oh my God, yes. A single billionaire distributing money through left-wing media channels could single-handedly undo an enormous amount of influence. One of the reasons why there are so many like out-of-nowhere right-wing grifters who suddenly become prominent is because there's an enormous amount of dude, it's like they're allergic to winning, man. Yeah, Engels was fucking wealthy. It's like it may seem useful to be able to win and have power, but actually that's not progressive enough. Yeah, he owned like large mills, like multiple factories. His family was wealthy. They were like textile mills.
to get them on board, we have to fundamentally change our goals. So if we want to achieve.
No, we don't. All you have to, for a billionaire, you could just say, hey, these are our goals. We think this is morally right. We're appealing to your good senses here. Can you please give us money? If the billionaire was then like, ah, well, actually, I'll only give you money if you change your goals to not be as hard on the wealthy, then we say no. We're not talking about changing the disposition of the left broadly. Yeah, Dima, I get that. It's just like in the context of the argument provided here, it doesn't make any sense. You would want like anything you could get, you know?
Those goals, we have to be okay with alienating certain groups of people. Just pausing here because I don't think I did a great job of clarifying this.
You didn't.
This point, I am not saying that dudes are unreachable. I'm saying that there are a portion of dudes who are unreachable. They're a small minority, but
there are a portion of all groups that are unreachable because that's just how people are. But you can still appeal to guys' interests, guys representing, you know, half the population of the planet. You can still reach out to them and try to like indicate to them that it's in their interest to move leftward without just doing like preachy gatekeepy bullshit.
My point is that because most dudes are reachable and can be made to understand that actually sexism is bad.
Okay, so let's find ways of convincing them of that point, right? So okay, right. They can be reached. So how do you reach them? Well, then you have to think of a good way of presenting that information to them, right? Maybe you should take subjects that they have a lot of emotional investment in, something they dedicate a lot of time to, something they think about a lot, something that weighs heavily on their mind, and think, how can I offer them a solution? How can I help them? How can I appeal to this interest? Here.
We therefore don't need to mollycoddle those who are too sensitive to hear that. Because chances are, if you don't like hearing that sexism is bad, if hearing that makes you not want to be cool or chill, then probably you weren't going to be useful as an ally.
Okay, this right here, this right there, that right there is the thing that shoots us in the foot every single time. If you just go up to some kid and you're like, hey, sexism is bad, you should stop being sexist, and like then they're not convinced by your epic argument, and then you're like, oh, I guess he wasn't going to move over anyway, then you do actually believe that men can't be reached. Like, sexism is bad isn't an argument obviously, that's like tautological. Sexism is a form of discrimination which is socially, like, conditioned to be bad. Like, even conservatives rarely say openly, I am sexist. They'll say, no, I'm not sexist. I just think men and women have different blah, 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 blah. That's because there's a strong social norm towards sexism being bad. So if your only argument is walking up to them and going, sexism's bad, and if they don't immediately prostrate before you and beg at your feet to let them into the movement, then that means they're unreachable, then you actually do think they're unreachable. You have to find ways to make that argument for them. How is sexism bad? Okay, well, here's an interesting question. What leads some men to believe sexism is good? Well, that's what we're arguing against, right? I mean, there's only really two roads you can go down on the whether sexism is good or bad thing, right? I mean, it's different flavors of two directions. So what leads many of them to believe that it's actually good, knowingly or unknowingly? Well, a lot of them, in my experience, are led to believe that sexism, or at least sexist attitudes, are good because of their experiences with dating and gender biases between the two groups. The idea being that men and women operate better in a social sense if they are not equal socially, but rather serve different roles. That's the root of historical sexism, right? The root of historical sexism isn't the idea that women are bad. In fact, the term misogynist was coined to describe men who were not merely paternalistically sexist, but who actively hated women. Or to put it another way, the kind of person who hates women was being made fun of by sexists hundreds of years ago, to the point where a term was coined to make fun of them. So hatred of women isn't really the active operative position, right? It usually stems from something else. Well, what leads to people being sexist or hating women? No matter how you run at it, and this is pretty demonstrable given all the young men who flock towards Peterson or Andrew Tate, a lot of it stems from insecurities that guys have. The belief that the way women behave today is off-putting and antisocial and civilizationally destructive, and that the best way to fix it would be to undo feminism and the gains that it's made. Insecurity is the root of this, so we have to find ways to address that insecurity, which you will not do, by the way, by just running up to them and saying, hey, sexism is bad. What is your response? And they're like, you're like, too slow. Puh! You fucking run away. Joel was much better at articulating a disagreement. Yeah, that's because Joel is fucking dope.
Also, probably, you don't wipe your ass. There's a statistical likelihood that you don't wipe your asshole. Reactionaries will always be able to get a foothold in any group
Fuck, they've got me.
of people being made to grapple with the unfair power they benefit from. Telling people they're special and deserve all the nice shit that they have, that's going to be an easier sell 10 times out of 10 than, like, saying, hey, maybe you should have less stuff and other people should have more.
Wait, again, what is with this zero-sum game shit? What do men have to have less of? Why do we keep... Why do lefties keep... In the case of, like, billionaires, obviously a socialist system would let a billionaire have less stuff than they do right now. But, like, what is a man losing? Feminism doesn't harm men. Why do they keep repeating anti-feminist talking points?
It just is. I don't know what to tell you. I don't know if you noticed it, but there's a kind of boom-bust cycle in capitalist economies. I think I'm the first person to point that out. But in recent times, they've gotten all the booms to go to a handful of jerks, and the rest of us been doing nothing but busting.
Men would lose some aspect of male privilege, right? Okay, but materially, what do you mean when you say that? Like in actuality, what are we talking about? Now at boardroom meetings, rather than men being picked to talk 15% more often, everyone gets picked equal amounts? That privilege? Like, really, what are we talking about here? No, I mean it. I'm looking at chat right now. I want somebody to tell me. Like, most of the stuff that feminism wants to change is preventing men from doing things that is already bad to do anyway. Like, feminism and the Me Too movement. Don't rape. Don't sexually harass people. Stop spanking the asses of your secretaries in the workplace. Um, like, that shit, but like that's not men losing something they ought to have anyway or want to have ideally. If you walked up to a guy and you were like, "Hey, how would you feel about feminism if the only thing you lost was you couldn't rape your secretary?" I feel like most guys, if they could get past the weirdness of the question, would be okay with that, you know? Male privilege is just a very nebulous thing, you know? A lot of male privilege is just not being targeted for the bad stuff that non-men get, you know? I agree it's incredibly stupid to grant the narrative conservatives men are going to lose things generally, but being charitable, I think men will still lose some stuff. If there are men who are convinced they want to live like Andrew Tate, aka a pimp, that type of man would lose things. Yeah, but true, but Andrew Tate's currently in jail, right? Like, that's my point. If your argument is like, okay, well, with feminism, men will lose the right to rape and traffic women sexually, it's like, okay, all right. But when I think like I don't think of that as like a male privilege thing because women can also do like it's illegal when women do it too. Like it's like so a woman could also do some big sex trafficking thing or whatever. I mean, it's not as likely to happen for a wide variety of reasons, but I'm not really thinking of that like, okay, well, this is something men are losing. I'm thinking like maybe men will lose like a little bit of the assumed competence that they get over women, but even that's changing because women are graduating from college way more than men are. So it's possible that demographically that's like not even I don't know. I think that feminism is a slam fucking dunk for men personally. I really do. I do think that. I do think that. I genuinely believe that. I have been a feminist for a long time now, at least like a solid decade. I have never cucked myself out to any of these pansy bitches. I have never not insulted a woman who annoyed me. I will never, ever, 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 ever feel like I have to apologize for being a guy. I'm uncucked, but none of that has anything to do with being a feminist. We're talking about like very basic social stuff, you know? I don't think I lose anything. We don't have to apologize or weaken ourselves. It's just it's you know it's a good sell. That's true, DM. It feels like the narrative has moved on now that we're further from Gamergate, but I hold all those positions.
Sorry, I'm just gonna take another take of that. The rest of us other people's shit because that rules. Just to have other people's shit, I would love to take shit from you. Patreon.com/. Part of that understanding is going to be uncomfortable, but prioritizing male comfort over the safety of others isn't going to help. It's just
Okay, so this is just going to contain all the same like thoughtless like bumper sticker slogans that we've gone over a million times before, right? Like you'll literally say like, "Hey, we should develop rhetoric to address concerns that men have without changing anything about our own movement." And they'll be like, okay, so you want to let rapists in?" It's yeah, thoughtless slime. Yeah. It's unfortunately, it's like the same all the time. It's the same. I mean, this is from 10 days ago, I guess, but it's not like they're any less stupid now. Yeah, okay. We could go over the whole thing, but like really, what's the point?